Buckeyes expecting a lot of noise in Seattle this coming Saturday afternoon as we welcome in Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Gerd, thank you once again for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Let's talk about this Husky team because Ryan Day is taking them very seriously. You can understand why after what Demond Williams did last week against Washington State and what he's done all season long for the Huskies.
Yeah, you're right. All season long, he's been dynamic. He is one of the top playmakers in the Big Ten and also one of the top quarterbacks. So he's dangerous behind the line of scrimmage. And then once he gets past the line of scrimmage, he's dangerous as well. But he's not just a scrambler. He's one of the best deep ball throwers in the Big Ten and in the country. And he's a problem. So it'll be interesting to see how Ohio State tries to attack him or tries to corral him without attacking him.
As you look at the other quarterbacks the Buckeyes have stifled so far this season, I would say Williams is probably more dynamic than Arch Manning and a whole lot better than Parker Navarro. And this is going to be a test for the Ohio State defense.
Yeah, the good news for Ohio State is that they got a little bit of an idea of facing mobile quarterbacks. But Demond Williams is another level. He's like a 4.4 guy, not the biggest guy, like 5'11", 190, and he gets to top speed quickly. So I'm fascinated to see how patient they are with him. And do you force the action or do you just try to keep him in the pocket and then let your secondary and your back seven defend things, especially when you've got a spy like Garvell Reese? How often is he just doing that? But I'll tell you, spying Parker Navarro or spying Arch Manning is a different animal compared to spying Demond Williams, because it's going to be very difficult for a linebacker to keep up with Demond Williams in this one as a spy. So there's all kinds of little nuances in this game that I'm looking forward to seeing. But it starts with Demond Williams and how you handle him. Now, he's gotten sacked 3 times a game, basically. So he, and in a couple of games I've watched, the Colorado State game and the Washington State game, blitzes have been able to get to him and it kind of freezes him a little bit. So you got to have this balancing act of, he doesn't necessarily do great against the blitz, but also we kind of want to just keep him contained. So what do we do?
If they can keep him contained, if they can actually force Washington to punt, that's going to be a victory right there, as the Huskies are on a remarkable streak, taking away end-of-game possessions and end-of-half possessions. They have scored on 21 straight times that they've had the ball.
Yeah, 19 of those are touchdowns. So this isn't just a bunch of field goal drives. These are mostly touchdown drives. And I think the last time they punted was in the second quarter back in August, to give you an idea. So it's been a while, and they don't go 3 and outs. Forget about it. They're able to pick up 3rd and 7 in a number of different ways. And the thing is, they don't have a lot of 3rd and 7s. They stay on schedule, which is the most important part. And they've got a running game, they've got a passing game. I think the only reason they're ranked is because they weren't ranked in the preseason. So, they didn't have a spot to begin with, and so trying to get them in there. Plus, they haven't played anybody yet. Certainly be the biggest competition they face, and they've done all their damage against bad teams, but they've done what you should do against bad teams.
I found it interesting that basically ever since last January, this Ohio State team has said, don't compare us to 2024. That was last year's team. This is this year's team. We're not the defending national champion. We're the attacking at national champions. Yet this week, they're kind of relying on that experience last year in talking about how they're going to prepare to go out to Seattle, leaving a day early, leaving on a Thursday as opposed to leaving on Friday, which is what they did last year when they went out to Oregon and, of course, lost to the Ducks during the regular season. Made up for it in the Rose Bowl, but it's interesting how all of a sudden they want to rely on what they did last season, that experience.
Yeah, you rely on the experience. You don't necessarily rely on the expectations. You prepare and you allow the players to fall back on that experience, and not just the players that played, but the players that traveled and the transfers, the freshmen, like Bo Jackson and Max Clare will be big in this game. They got to travel to the bowl games and experience that sort of situation. But that was also a pro Ohio State crowd, or at least a 50-50 Ohio State crowd when they were traveling. This one, I don't know how many Ohio State fans are going to be there. I believe the game is sold out. I would be expecting at least 75% of the home crowd to be there. We'll see what kind of percentage Ohio State fans can put up, but it's going to be a hostile environment. And dealing with that and just getting over all of the differences, the newnesses of traveling to get there and have their best Fridays in football on Friday and kind of just wind down a little bit before they kick off at noon on Saturday local, which is what they're used to anyway. So that's no big shake. Just there's some things that they can look back on and rely on in this kind of game.
First road trip this season for the Buckeyes, which means it's the first road start for Julian Sayin.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting in terms of the silent counts and all of those different things they do to handle that game, but also handle the nerves. And I would say that the Texas game being at home, of course, he should be able to handle that kind of environment. But it's still a very big game, and yet they came out of that game thinking they could have asked for more. They could have asked him to do more. They didn't ask him to do much. So it leads me to think they're going to ask him to do what they normally would in a game. And Ryan Day said they can't let the environment, they can't let the atmosphere keep them from being aggressive. So you would think that they're going to kind of throw it around a little bit, provided that they can protect him. And so that's going to be the key, of course. And nothing we've seen from Julian saying at this point lets you think that he gets rattled. And I remember talking to him a couple weeks ago about, somebody asked him, when was the last time you got rattled in football? And he's like, I don't know. It's been a very long time. And I said, well, when's the last time you've been rattled with anything? And he's like, well, I have an older brother who, he knows what buttons to push. So this is a guy who kind of just been preparing for this, and we'll see how it goes.
As you mentioned, Washington is unranked, second year under Jed Fish, former Michigan assistant coach, a Husky program that's not that far removed from playing from a national championship. That's who Michigan beat in 2023 to win the title. Actually, the game was in 2024, but the 2023 national championship. So the fact is that this is a Husky program with a high pedigree that has Ohio State's attention and respect.
Yeah, I think Ryan Day was asked on Tuesday, did the Apple Cup score get your guys' attention? And it was 59-24. It was 31-24 in the fourth quarter. I don't know how many people are aware of that. And Washington scored 28 points in the fourth quarter. But yeah, these are all players who saw Washington in the national championship game 1 year before Ohio State was. So there's definitely respect there. And then you just watch the film and you see offensively from Washington, there are guys that if you take lightly, they're just going to run through you, run by you, run over you. And so you can't do that. And they've got really good quarterback, really good running back in Jonah Coleman, really good wide receiver in Denzel Boston. Any of these guys could play at Ohio State, and they have that kind of ability. And how well can they protect DeMond Williams? That's a question. How much production can they get out of their other receivers? That's another question. And then, defensively, I think there are concerns for Washington in this game in terms of the secondary. They've got some injuries, lost a starting linebacker, maybe getting back a starting linebacker, maybe without a starting cornerback. These are all questions that Ohio State might have good answers for.
Ohio State will try to buck two trends on this Saturday. First off, we know how Big Ten teams have struggled when they've traveled west multiple time zones, and Washington has not lost a home game since 2021, second longest streak in college football. Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.